Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Netapaharine. So today we will be discussing a paragraph which was given on this day, that is June 23rd, Sunday. So you can find this particular paragraph in page number 46 of Inspired Talks. So I will read this passage, it is very interesting. So Swami Vivekananda says, we are striving to be and nothing more. No I even, just pure crystal, reflecting all but ever the same. When that state is reached, there is no more doing. The body becomes a mere mechanism, pure without care for it. It cannot become impure. So this is the passage. So I will read this passage again. So it is very interesting passage. We are striving to be and nothing more. No I even, just pure crystal, reflecting all but ever the same. When that state is reached, there is no more doing. The body becomes a mere mechanism, pure without care for it, and it cannot become impure. So Swami Vivekananda says, we are striving to be in our pure, pristine state, which the obvious reference which he has given is that of a crystal. And because of this association with this body, we may be reflecting all the things which are superimposed upon it, but we remain the same as the crystal. So that is the point here. So when we reach that particular pure state, or we are already in that particular pure state, so when we are conscious of ourselves, of this consciousness, of this Purusha or this Atman, and there is no more doing, the body becomes a mere mechanism, and pure without care for it, it cannot become impure. So the obvious reference of this particular passage is to this Sankhya philosophy. So in Sankhya philosophy, there are two entities. One is the Purusha, which is pure consciousness, and the another is that of Prakriti, which is nature. So the classical example which they give in this philosophy is this. So they say in this philosophy that you just take a crystal on your one hand and you take a flower on the other hand. So what happens if you bring this flower near the crystal? So what happens if you bring, suppose a red color flower near the crystal? So the crystal reflects the color of the flower. For example, if the color of the flower is red, the crystal too reflects the red color of the flower. So we are, the reference here is about this philosophy, Sankhya philosophy, this Purusha and Prakriti. So we are this pure crystal. This Purusha is always pure, it is always independent. But because of this association with Prakriti, we appear to be colored, or the color appears to be that of a different thing. Because of the reflection or because of association with Prakriti, we appear to be associated with this body. So that is the point here. So Purusha, here it refers to this pure consciousness, whereas this Prakriti, it refers to this body. So if we take this body, we find there is Buddhi, there is Ahankara, and there is mind associated with this body, and we find 5 sense organs associated with this body, and we find 5 karmendriyas. Karmendriyas means your hands, feet, so organs of action they say, karma indriyas, karmendriyas. And again we find there are 5 subtle elements associated with this body, and again there are gross elements. So all these things put together, combined, it becomes Prakriti. So Prakriti is nothing but, in practical terms, it means it just refers to the body. So body, if you see Prakriti, it just constitutes what is called the Buddhi, the Ahankara, mind, the 5 sense organs, and 5 Karmendriyas, and 5 Tanmatras, and Pancha Mahabhutas. So all these principles, they put together, they form this Prakriti. So according to this philosophy, there is one more interesting thing. They say that Prakriti has a couple of states. Prakriti has got both unmanifest state and a state where the Prakriti gets manifested. So in its pristine, in its prior association with Purusha, this Prakriti appears to be in equilibrium. They say that according to this principle, this whole of this Prakriti, sir, excuse me, can you please switch off your phone? Because the sound is coming again and again, it is disturbing the class actually. So they say according to this principle, this Prakriti, prior to its association with Purusha, it is in a state of equilibrium. The 3 gunas which constitutes the Prakriti, they are in perfect equilibrium. They are in a state of perfect equilibrium. But once it comes and joins, or once it comes near or in proximity with Purusha, the Prakriti becomes manifest. The combination of gunas or the equilibrium of the gunas is disturbed, and because of this, Prakriti manifests itself in the form of this Ahankara, Buddhi, elements and so on. So there is a beautiful example which is given for our better understanding, for our better comprehension. They say that, for example, if in a house, if the head of the house has gone outside and he has got servants at home, and while this particular head, when he is outside his home, sometimes the servants will be idle. They will not be doing any work because the boss is not there. You don't have the boss at home, so the servant will be sitting idle, or he may not be doing any work at all sometimes. But once the boss enters the house, what happens? Immediately the servant gets up and he starts doing the work automatically. So that is a reference which is given in this philosophy also. They say that once Prakriti, because of its proximity itself, that is sufficient to trigger an action in Prakriti. So Purusha is there, there is Prakriti, there is no actual joining between these 2 entities. Just because of the proximity is enough to trigger an action. Just like the boss in the house who is entering the house, just that particular thing is enough to trigger an action in the servant. Similarly, in this case, the Prakriti which is in a equilibrium, which is in a state of equilibrium, it becomes, the equilibrium is disturbed and it gets into action. So as the servant does an action, similarly this Prakriti, it enters into the action. So because of this association, it seems this Prakriti, this Purusha is an action. So the Purusha, which is of the nature of pure consciousness, because of its association with Prakriti, it appears to be acting. It appears to be doing karma. So that is a reference here. So Swami Vivekananda has given, he says that when you attain that pure state, means when you are conscious of yourself as pure Purusha, at that time there is no more doing. So the karma ceases completely. So when you attain this jnana, that you are this pure consciousness and you have nothing to do with this prakriti, when you have nothing to do with this body, then you find yourselves to be in that pure and a pristine state. So that is a reference here. So here now the question arises. So why do we come in contact with Prakriti? So how do we in the first place we got associated with this body? So this is a very tricky philosophical question. They say that we have associated with this particular Prakriti or this body because for two reasons. The first reason is that they say that for darshanartham. Darshanartham means through this vehicle, through this body, we experience the world. Through these five elements or through this body or through this Prakriti, we experience the world. And again, through this experience, there is one more thing which is called mokshartham. So the reason why we got associated with Prakriti is for these two things. One is for darshanartham, to experience the world, and another, through this experience we learn lessons in life, and finally we understand that we are this pure Purusha and we want to come out of this particular association with Prakriti, and there comes mokshartham. So the reason for existence or the reason why we exist, or for example in the Western parlance, finding the meaning of life. So there are big questions about finding the meaning of life. So we find all those things are addressed here. They say that the meaning of life, the meaning of your existence is for moksha. So whether we are willing participants in spiritual life or not, whether we are consciously practicing spirituality or not, and whether we learn lessons, obviously we learn lessons. So whatever may be the situation or conditions in our life, we are progressing towards moksha. So this is one of the most positive philosophical systems that we find in the Indian philosophical systems. So according to this philosophy, it says whatever wrong you may be doing in life, or you might have done a lot of mistakes in life, but whatever it may be, everything is again progressing towards moksha. So we experience the world. Through this experience, we gather some lessons, and finally we feel that I am this pure Purusha, just like the pure crystal, and I no longer want to associate with this body or with this Prakriti. And finally, I feel that I want to become independent. So this thirst for independence is very much inherent in ourselves. This thirst for independence is always there in a system, whatever in this human system. So this triggers that the spiritual process, this thirst for freedom or this thirst for remaining oneself in your pure self, it triggers the spiritual process, and finally through jnana we attain the state of this pure Purusha which is untouched by Prakriti. And finally, once we reach that state, Swami Vivekananda says there is no more doing. So there is no more association with Prakriti, there is no more karma generated. And because there is no more karma generated, there is no more birth and rebirth. And again, there is no more ignorance associated with Prakriti. So right now, our identity most of the time is based upon this body identity only. So I identify myself with this Prakriti, with this body only all the time. Though we are this pure Purusha within, still because of ignorance, we identify ourselves with this little ignorant self. So that has to change, and even sometimes in our lives, there are many occasions where we feel this very obviously, that whatever mistakes we commit, there is always something which is within us which tells us that we are pure. So whatever this karma that we have committed in life, there is always deep within yourself, there is a voice which keeps telling us you are pure. So whatever maybe the situation you are associated with, there is this particular voice, it keeps repeating this thing that you are pure. And this is obviously the reason we find in, for example, in our day-to-day life. If suppose, for example, in school, if a student is caught cheating and doing some in exams or something, or in class, or if he is caught, and if the teacher comes and asks him, have you committed this mistake? He obviously says, no, I didn't do it. So, if we analyze it very closely, the first thing is that we know that that is a lie, and again it again says the state of the pure being which is inside, which is not associated with the karma that he is doing. And that is the obvious reason that he says, no, I didn't do it. Though he has done the mistake, and though a particular student or for example, a criminal, he commits a mistake, and suppose if, for example, the police personnel comes and inquires him, and the first thing which is obviously which he tells is not, no, I didn't do it. So if we analyze this particular examples deeply, we find that deep inside within us, there is always this pure state which is independent of these actions which we perform outside. And that is the reason through reflex we reject everything. What are the mistakes that we do, or whatever the karma that we do, we say, no, we are not this karta. But still, because of ignorance, because of this association, there is a karma which is performed. And again, because of this karma, there is again the continuous association with Prakriti. So rebirth is nothing but continuous association with Prakriti. Because we have not attained this jnana of ourselves as pure consciousness, this process continues until we attain this jnana. So until we attain this moksha, this Prakriti is going to help us. It should not be taken the other way around. It should not be taken in the negative connotation. It must be taken in the positive connotation. So Prakriti is guiding us. Prakriti is guiding us towards liberation. So Prakriti is asking us to learn lessons from life. It is actually pushing us forward. It doesn't push you backwards. So this is one of the most positive philosophical systems that you find in the entire world. It doesn't condemn a man. It says that, it doesn't say that you're a sinner and so on. There is no concept of sin and so on in this particular system. It says that Prakriti is pushing you towards this particular goal. It is helping you through this experience and through this process. So it is helping us to attain this enlightenment. Enlightenment, here it refers to that jnana. So according to this particular system, we have already seen that there are three gunas which are associated with Prakriti. So the first one is that Sattva guna. So Sattva guna is something which reflects this pure consciousness much more than the other gunas. So Sattva guna is pure, it is serene, it is very calm, and it reflects this pure consciousness more than the rest of the gunas. Whereas this Rajas is the particular guna that binds us to the external world. So Rajas is the force that draws us away from the locus which is within us. So most of the time in our daily lives, which is very obvious, there are something which attracts us more. It draws the locus from within to the external point or to an external object. For example, any objects in the external world which we are drawn to. There is a shifting of locus from within to outside. So that is a Rajas. And Tamas, they say it is a dark state, or it is a state of stupor, and it is a state of laziness and so on. So that state is more or less, it connects with the state which the animals are in. So if you examine the state of the animals, most of the time they spend in tamasic state, either harming, either hunting, sleeping, and all those states. So all those states are tamasic qualities. So according to this philosophy, they say that only this sattva guna, wherein they say there are certain bhavas which are associated with this philosophy. So only this sattva guna can be capable of producing this jnana, or will help you towards attaining that jnana. So there is tremendous importance which is given to this Sattva Guna. So Sattva Guna, it helps us attaining this Jnana. So that is the point here. And so once we identify completely with this pure Purusha, see the amount of freedom that we gain from it. We gain completely freedom from this system which we are bound to. And again, we attain complete knowledge about the system, knowledge about the functioning of the system and so on. And again, since we are not doing any karma, we become completely cut off from the series of births and deaths. And finally, we have fulfilled the plan which Prakriti has assigned us. So the plan which Prakriti has assigned to us has been successfully completed. The task is successfully completed. So if we take one of the beautiful quotations of Swami Vivekananda, wherein he says that this world is a gymnasium where we have come to make ourselves strong. He says that this world is a gymnasium, so we have come here to become strong. It means that this is the state, or this is the process, this is the place where we are going to help ourselves, or we are going to gain all those spirituality and so on, and we are going to build ourselves. So we are going to have this test. So for this test, we are going to make ourselves strong. So conversely, the Prakriti is going to make us strong. So it always doesn't go in the other way. Prakriti, it doesn't make you weak, it always makes you strong. Prakriti, it gives you vairagya, Prakriti, it gives you renunciation, and Prakriti, which gives you this unselfish quality and so on. So Prakriti is something which is going to give you the strength. So that is a reference here which Swami Vivekananda says that this is the world where we have come to make ourselves strong. So Prakriti is helping us in this process. So that is the point here, and it cannot become impure. So once we attain this pure state, once we attain this knowledge completely, we will not be soiled by this Prakriti anymore. We will not be associated with this body or this bodily identity anymore. The freedom is complete here. The bondage is completely cut off. The complete knowledge is attained. A person attains freedom once for all. A person gets liberation. So the plan of the Prakriti is fulfilled. So you had this darshan of the world, you had all the experiences of the world, and finally Prakriti is again, it is going to give you this moksha also. So if we find in our daily lives, we are continuously learning lessons every day. So we test, we experiment certain qualities, we experiment our lot of habits and so on, and we constantly refine our habits, we refine our understanding about life. So there is always a growth which is associated with this life. Even though we might have committed a lot of karma and so on, but still again we always come back and learn lessons in life. So the point here is that it's not to have a negative mindset about life or to have a negative approach about life, and the emphasis is on a positive approach towards life. For example, during the moment of crisis, or during a setback, for example, in life, or during a state where you do not feel yourself fully or completely, so do not despair. There is no need to despair. So wait and learn lessons in life, and again come back and be all the more stronger and understand the process, how this life is working. So what is life? It is taking us towards, so where we are going, and so we find this beautiful prayer and Vedic prayer where there is a thing, we move from darkness to enlightenment. So this philosophy also says the same thing, that we move from ignorance to jnana, we move from ajnana to jnana. So tamasoma jyotirgamaya. So we move from this tamas, which is a state of darkness, to a state of enlightenment. So again I will read this statement for our better understanding. Swami Vivekananda says, we are striving to be. To be means in that pure state. We are always striving to be in our pure state and nothing more. No I even. That means we are not standing even in this ahankara. I here it refers to the principle of ahankara. We do not stand even in this ahankara also, which is associated with this body. We are always striving to be in our own pure state. He says, just pure crystal, reflecting all. So the pure crystal, just like a pure crystal, just it reflects all whatever it comes in contact with, but still it remains always pure. Though it reflects, though the color of the crystal, it changes because of its association with this body or this prakriti, but still if we take that association, the crystal is always the same. So when that state is reached, when you reach that particular state, he says that there is no more karma. There is no more doing means, it refers to there is no more birth and rebirth, there is no more cycle of samsara associated with it. We attain this jnana completely, and the body becomes a mere mechanism. So once this jnana is achieved, body it takes care or it is completely cut off. There is no more ignorance associated with it. And finally, the pure Purusha cannot become impure, and it is never impure. So in the first place, it is never impure, and it cannot become impure also. See, within this 4 or 5 lines, Swami Vivekananda has discussed one of the grandest of the philosophical systems in India. So we have to go deeply into some of the verses of Swami Vivek or some of the statements of Swami Vivekananda to understand it more deeply. So again, we will summarize this chapter, this particular statement or the statements, this paragraph. So we are striving through this process, through this existence or through this mechanism called life. We are trying to be in our pure state, but because of this association with Prakriti, we are constantly learning lessons in life. We are experiencing life, and finally, all those experience, it is going to culminate in moksha. They say, according to this philosophy, that the Purusha exists, the Prakriti exists for Purusha's darshanartham and for Purusha's mokshartham. So it is just a helping thing, it is just a helping tool. We are helping ourselves with this body and use this tool to achieve this enlightenment. So that is the point here. We have to use this body and the system which is given to us to achieve this jnana, to achieve this enlightenment. And this system is very much positive. It says that it is not going to bring in towards a downward spiral, for example. It is always going to make you more and more strong, and it is through this experience, and we gain knowledge about the world, we gain knowledge about ourselves, and finally we achieve this purity and we become this pure Purusha, or we regain this consciousness of ourselves as this pure Purusha. And once this complete identification is achieved, once we attain this complete jnana, this freedom is achieved forever. So if you have any doubts regarding this particular philosophy or this particular statements of Swamiji, we can discuss here. So it is a very interesting system. And one more word about this particular system. This particular philosophy, this Sankhya philosophy, has inspired a lot of other systems. For example, Buddhism, for example, even yoga system. The system of yoga is completely based on Sankhya philosophy. So the goal of this yoga, if we read Patanjali Yoga Sutra, it says that the goal of this yoga is to separate Purusha and Prakriti. Separate in the sense to attain this jnana, to attain this knowledge. Even Buddhism also, to many great extent, it has been inspired by the Sankhya philosophy. And one more interesting thing and one more important aspect about this philosophy is that the aspect about Godhead is not discussed here. It is completely absent in this philosophy. There are only 2 entities here. One is the Purusha within this body, the Prakriti outside. And because of this association with Prakriti, we feel or we experience pain in life. So that is one of the important points here in this philosophy. It says that because of this association, because of this bodily association, we feel pain. And if we want to eliminate this pain, we have to achieve this jnana. So if we find in Buddhism also the same thing. They say that existence is miserable and the goal is to achieve this enlightenment. And even in this yoga philosophy, we find a lot of statements related to this philosophy and so on. So this is a very grand philosophical system in India. The only odd aspect, or we can't say it as an odd aspect, but with reference to this particular system, there is there is no Godhead, or there is no idea of what do you call the God, the aspects of the God are completely missing in this thing, or those philosophers have felt that those things are necessary, or their approach to life may be completely different. So it all depends on how you view the life. So their approach to existence, or their approach to solving problems, they felt that it doesn't require an idea of God. So that is a point here. So we'll discuss more about Swami Vivekananda's inspired talks in the following classes. So we will end this class here. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.